Welcome, another Hot Topic Tuesday. Obviously, this one right here, this week in real estate. Lots of stuff has been coming in. So today I've got a few key things that we are going to want to take a look at. I even thought, as many of these as we're doing, let's get an objective here. So up above, you got it's to always bring you the experiences of others, the good and the not so good, so that you can actually build your business and avoid the bad, the ugly. Focus on the good. Get rid of the bad and the ugly, right? Why run into something that somebody else has already run into? What are we going to have? Personal property addendums. Um, I'm just going to explain why. And with that, some are going to disagree and some will agree, but I hope I bring clarification as to why they're necessary and why they're not necessary. And there is two sides to that equation. Um, Another one that came in is mutual releases. And with this, we want to look at it from, I'm on the seller side and I haven't got my mutual release yet. And now I've got a seller who's got an offer on this property that the buyer said, I'm walking. And of course, there was this one that came up, and it's a buyer representation scenario. As I put it here, those things that make you go, one that you haven't thought about. So here we go. Interactive, guys. So let's talk. What is the issue with these personal property addendums? And for those who don't know, basically it's we're going to leave the stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer, microwave. Personal property. Okay. And it's going to seem odd. So I'm going to be speaking to you mostly from an aspect of when we receive them. Yet, very important that we understand how our purchase agreement is set up. So I'm going to say for right now, just hold that thought for a minute on why there's an issues with these or why they could be. So first question really is, why do agents use them? Here's the first part that we need to know and understand. One is because it's a necessity. There are purchase agreements that agents have to use or choose to use where they don't have room to put the personal property. You think of our purchase agreement and there's all these things included, and so we put the personal property there. We've even got at the end of it additional conditions. Well, there are purchase agreements that exist that do not have either one of those. So primary reason that they should or would use them on their purchase agreement is because they don't have room for it. So they would use it because their purchase agreement does not hold the room. Ignorance. Again, not a negative. We're not being rude to anybody. We're just simply stating the fact that they don't know what they don't know. They don't understand the personal property addendum. They don't understand why they have it. Most of them, I can't tell you how often I've heard this, my broker requires that I have it. Well, our purchase agreement, you don't need the thing. It's not necessary. Us writing an offer, it's not necessary. Why? Because we put it on the purchase agreement. And I've had to fight with agents personally. I've had to fight with agents when I'm taking care of my agents because I'd get an agent who said, but I need it. And I'd have to call and explain to them either for myself or for my agent as to why they don't need it. And I would hear, but my broker requires it. Why? Well, I don't know. Guys, Ignorance. It's an issue. Plan on it. Here's the other reason. And this is where the problem comes in. Okay? So let me be real clear. There are times when it's a necessity that will receive one, and you're going to look at the purchase agreement, and it should be referenced on the purchase agreement that there is an addendum regarding personal property. Let me say it again. Out of necessity, we've received a purchase agreement where they don't have the space, so they need a personal property addendum. And it should be referenced on the purchase agreement. Our purchase agreement, we put it on. Well, Darwin, what if I'm writing a purchase agreement and attached to the documents is a personal property addendum, personal property sheet, whatever you want to call it? Well, my thought is, don't use it. And by the way, does everybody know when I say a personal property addendum, have you seen them, know what I'm referring to? So because I've got one I could pull up. I went looking for it, which was really odd. I couldn't find one. I had to shuffle through about 15 listings. And I'm looking in Genesee County where I believe all of these things started at. And the reason being is Genesee County purchase agreement, I would like to have looked at it prior to, but it used to be they didn't have space to be able to put personal property. So they put it on a personal property addendum. And then I start, by the way, let me give you history to this. I believe that they did this out of ignorance. Don't know, don't have proof. Call it Darwin's theory. But they did it because they're out rural. So we have a purchase agreement, doesn't have room. They have an addendum. We have a purchase agreement. We have room. Listing broker requires that there's a personal property addendum. We say, I made an offer without one because it's on our purchase agreement. Our buyer has made their offer. I don't think that a seller is going to come back and go, I need that personal property addendum. Ask the question if they start this with you. Can you explain to me why you would want a personal property addendum when I've already got it on the purchase agreement? The buyer made their offer this way. We see that just doesn't make sense, right? So now let's talk about the history to why I believe these things came about. Most of us in the metropolitan areas don't run into it because we don't have all the additional things that people want that a mortgage company is not willing to finance. Now, if you've been in the business for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go out to, I don't know, Imlay City. For my Lansing folks, let's go out to St. John. And I've got a property that we're selling. And there's this really nice tractor that I'd like to have to go with all this acreage I'm buying that I can put in the barn that's there. Tractors, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in value. Everybody with me? Now, I'm using my purchase agreement, our purchase agreement, and what do I put on it? Because the buyer wants it. stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer, microwave, you know this. And that $20,000 tractor. Seller accepts the offer. We send it to the mortgage company. And by the way, this is where the real issue comes in. It's the mortgage company. We're getting a loan. The mortgage company says, hey, I've submitted this, and the underwriter says you need to remove the tractor. So I need an addendum removing the tractor. And you're going, oh, but wait a minute, we negotiated that with the $20,000 tractor being a part of it. Mortgage says, I don't care. I need an addendum removing it. If you put it on a separate addendum that it's included, I just don't want to know about it. Everybody with me? I'm using a very large item to make it really, really obvious as to the issue. So let's see if this will show up for me. Purchase agreement says there is a tractor. Addendum says, nope, no tractor. Those two get submitted to the MLS. Then there's a third one that says, yeah, no, it's still included. Everybody give me a head nod that you understand what we have. So a purchase agreement says there's a tractor included. An addendum that says, nope, no tractor is included. We have both of those in the hands of the mortgage company. And then there's this other addendum that says it's still included, but you can't picture it, but I'm going to put this right under the table so that nobody else knows about it, except for the real estate agents, the buyer, the seller. What's the problem, right? I mean, it's just this little old agreement sitting here, but nobody needs to know about it. Until you get to closing. And one of the last documents that gets thrown in front of the buyer is a document that says something to the nature that this is a federal loan, and you're making a statement that we've closed this in accordance to the terms of the purchase agreement, and there are no side agreements. Except for this one that's under the table. Federally backed loan. Mortgage fraud. Silence for impact. Federal offense, mortgage fraud. Anybody want to be a part of that? That's what happens when we play that final scenario. Somebody's hiding something. So the bottom line becomes this, guys, if it is a, get it right there, necessity, it gets really complicated to make this work right. But anyway, if it's a necessity, no problem. Everybody should know about it. And the addendum should be stated on the purchase agreement that there is a personal property addendum or whatever anybody wants to refer to it. But when somebody comes up and is going to hide something, don't do it. If the mortgage company can't know about it, there's something illegal about it. There's a reason the mortgage person says, I just don't want to know about it. So I got to tell you, it was interesting to search through the libraries that I have access to. And I think the only place that you're going to find a personal property addendum is if you have access to the Flint area, the East Central Association of Realtors. I went through everything that I have access to in Sky Slope. Didn't exist. So that's Dearborn, Ann Arbor, GMAR, that's, let's see, Livingston, that's Grosse Pointe, that's RealComp, that's Michigan Realtors. Why do you think they wouldn't have a personal property addendum? So, guys, bottom lining it, we don't need it when we're writing an offer. If we receive one, look, that's the buyer's offer. We'll work with it. Okay? You don't need it if it's your purchase agreement. And if anybody says, well, here, we've got to do this because it's got to be removed, but sign this one saying it's still included. Red flags, guys. That's raised high in the air. Does that kind of help and understand why we shouldn't and why we should? Just a couple of head nods. Everybody good? What questions do you have that might be hanging there?
Can you hear me, Darwin?
Yep, I got you, boss.
My question always goes back to chattel, right? There's always, if there is a pool table, if there is a tractor. So we go back to chattel, and I've always been told that chattel is not something that a bank wants to see on an agreement that's being exchanged between buyer and seller. So then this kind of pops up some gray areas here as to this personal property addendum
Elizabeth,
of exchange.
you have just brought up why I don't like personal property addendums.
Okay.
It's exactly what you just said.
Because that
I've
addendum
been
then
told,
becomes part of the purchase agreement and then has to be submitted, otherwise it's fraud. Okay. Makes
because
perfect sense.
there is something included. There would be a side agreement at that point that we just haven't told the mortgage company about. So you see, that's the whole thing. Everybody has done, Elizabeth, thank you for bringing it up. Everybody's always got, well, you don't put those things on a purchase agreement. You put them on an addendum. Well, why? Because the mortgage company doesn't want to finance a $20,000 tractor or a $20,000 boat or pontoon. I mean, you can think of all the different things that a mortgage company doesn't want to lend money on for 30 years. So the reason that we've always heard, well, you don't put those things on a purchase agreement is exactly what Elizabeth just said. The mortgage company doesn't want to finance those. Well, then you can't put it on an addendum because it's tied to the purchase agreement. If it's tied to the purchase agreement, mortgage company should have it. If the mortgage company should have it, it should be on the purchase agreement. If it should be on the purchase agreement, but mortgage company says it can't be on the purchase agreement, it should be removed or never put there in the first place. Otherwise, we're going to sign that document. We, the buyers, would be signing that document at the end of the time, end of the closing, saying that there's no side agreement, but there was. And so Elizabeth, you're spot on with what you brought up. We're not supposed to put them on there because we know mortgage companies don't want to finance them. But at the same point, that means we're not negotiating tractors as part of a real estate transaction.
So obviously this comes up a lot in all transactions. We're going to see this come around. And so this should be something that is between buyer and seller to agree upon separate to the purchase agreement, us not involved type thing. Okay.
You nailed it. And Debbie, let me get yours back up here in front of me.
He asked, what if the buyer is going to pay for the tractor in cash?
So not the tractor in cash. Let's hit both of those scenarios. Because Peter, I think that's what I was seeing. And my mind went to, if this is a cash transaction, there's no mortgage. You can
I
sell
think
the
she
tractor
means
right
paying
along
for
with
the
the purchase
tractor
agreement.
separately.
Now, if looking at it from the other side, I'm going to buy the tractor separate from the real estate transaction. Doesn't matter. It's not tied. But if they want to buy the tractor for $1 and not tie it to the transaction, I would not recommend that my seller take that deal. Because if the transaction falls through, what do they have an agreement to be able to sell the tractor for? $1. But Darwin, how do you find a but with that? Well, but can I tie it? Can't I like make it the agreement to buy it for $1 subject to them purchasing? Well, what did you just tie it to? We just tied it to the real estate transaction. So bottom line, if it's a cash deal overall, put the tractor in with it. Doesn't matter then. There's no mortgage. If they're going to create a deal outside of the transaction, then it doesn't matter. But I certainly hope that my seller wouldn't sign a deal to sell a $20,000 tractor for $1 and not tie it to the purchase agreement. Now, let me address something that many of you with experience have already thought about. This happens all the time. I remember fighting with a mortgage officer who says, Darwin, I've been doing this for 15 years. I said, you've been creating mortgage fraud. You've instructed sellers, buyers, agents for the entire time period you've been doing that to commit mortgage fraud. The only thing is nobody's been called out on it. Well, who wants to be the first one? I mean, that's the key. So if it's a cash deal, it doesn't matter. But if there's a mortgage involved and it's federally backed, don't hide it. If it can't be on the purchase agreement, it cannot be part of the transaction.
Hey, Darwin.
Yes, sir.
So I'm in the middle of a kind of a quirky deal that has, as a result of the inspection, we negotiated that the seller would leave a full propane tank. Normally, the seller has to get reimbursed for what's in the tank. They would leave a full propane tank at no cost to the seller, to the buyer, as part of the negotiations over what we found in the inspection, among other things. But that's the one that kind of seems to fit this category. And I'm just curious, are we going to run into a mortgage problem with something like that?
Well, as long as the mortgage company knows about it and they don't tell you to remove it, you're going to be fine.
All right. Well, it's in the addendum. We wrote it into the addendum. It's all signed, and so it's part of the package that we submitted. Haven't heard anything yet, but it was just weird enough that.
Yep, it's a great question, Kevin. And then here's what I would give you with that. If they don't tell you that you can't do it, then it's fine. If they tell you that, hey, you need to remove that clause from that addendum, then you remove that clause from that addendum and we don't do anything else.
Okay.
It's just doing everything above board. That's all it really is. So probably the only thing different I would do is to say, hey, mortgage person, we had this, can we do this? And let them tell you whether or not to make that part of your purchase agreement.
Okay. All right. I guess because if they tell me to take it off, then our deal is weird, right? Then
yeah, then you got to take it off.
But my buyer now has lost what we negotiated for the
correct
for the settlement.
That's why typically when we have scenarios like this, In the purchase agreements for the metropolitan area, including ours, actually, if you'll remember, it says there's 4 options. One of them basically is we can reduce the price or get a credit.
Right.
So what we do is not a credit because you did this, this, this. It simply says that, like that propane tank, let's call it $500. I would say seller to provide $500 to be applied toward closing cost taxes prepaids. Now we know the reason we did that, but we're not going to state that because getting $500 toward closing costs is legitimate and doable.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Great question for that one. By the way, mortgage companies are acceptable for there to be a statement about things like pool tables, gun safes, pianos. Those are the top 3 because they're heavy and not easily moved. And in the clauses is a very simple one, but you could remember to write this yourself, but it's there if you need it. And that would be that the pool table is being left at the convenience of the seller and holds no monetary value. We've never had a problem with that. It's included, it's being left. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't have a problem in the future, but that is one legitimate way that mortgage companies will approve those types of things. I think I've even had the dock, because if it's not sunk in the water and it's a portable one where they just hook it up and pull it out, that needs to be addressed so it can stay. But again, communicate with the mortgage partner in advance to see whether or not that's something that could slide through. All right, good discussion on this one. Any other questions toward this? The biggie, guys, just know those basics. When is it a necessity? When are they hiding something? And for those that are ignorant, please explain to me why we need to have a personal property addendum when I've already got it on the buyer's offer. No logic to that at all.
So quick question, Darwin, before you go. I did find a personal property sheet with Coldwell Banker Professionals on it. Is that different than an
Throw it
addendum?
away, pretend that it doesn't exist.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not.
All right.
As far as I know, it's not in our library.
Okay. It is.
If it is,
Yeah.
it's my personal opinion, there is no need for it. We have a purchase agreement. And
Yep.
if you're going to commit mortgage fraud, well, I don't get to wear an orange jumpsuit if it ever does happen.
Okay.
Chris does, and probably you and your agent.
I just want to point it out, so I'll make sure it's off of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there are those that just think that you need to have it. I hope that people understand with our purchase agreement, you don't need it. Other people do need it. I've never run into a scenario that's legal and legitimate with our purchase agreement to have a personal property addendum. Oh, by the way, outside of, you need a huge long list. So I'll give you one other scenario. I'm buying a vacation property. It is a second home. You with me? I'm putting 25% down, and all of the personal property is coming with it. The furniture, couches, chairs, beds, linens, the knives and forks, plates, glasses, everything's being left with it. You're likely to be able to get that one through. Just know that you need to tell the mortgage company because they are buying it that way for a reason. But that's a different type of property. But that is one where you'd probably be able to get that through. And then you're going to have a very lengthy one. You're not going to have a simple one with 5 to 10 lines on it with 5 to 10 items. So good stuff. Wow. Okay. Mutual release. Here's a scenario. Buyers informed us that they're not going to close. And it's one of those buyers where we're afraid that they're going to drag their feet along in signing a mutual release. And yet the sellers received a new offer and they want to be able to accept it. But we haven't got this mutual release. Everybody's seeing a little bit of the issue here, right? The offer that came in, although they knew that this was the situation, didn't make it contingent upon the mutual release of the existing contract. Everybody full with the scenario here? So here's what we all know. We need to have that mutual release signed prior to accepting that offer and definitely before closing. However, we definitely don't want the seller accepting 2 offers. You can't sell the same house to 2 people unless if they're each willing to do partnership and have 50-50 interest, right? If my seller were to sign, if our seller were to sign another purchase agreement, and this you can see is the issue, should they sign that purchase agreement, the new one, without the mutual release? So this one's open for discussion, guys. What can we do? What should we do? Suggestions? So let me be more direct with the question. Can the seller simply accept the new purchase agreement?
I think contingent to release of the previous agreement, he can.
That's the perfect answer, Elizabeth. Yeah, guys, what we want to do is to say, let's say it's perfectly acceptable. We don't make any changes yet. We'd still have to make a counter because the counter would be exactly what Elizabeth said. This offer is accepted subject to the release from an existing purchase agreement. That's the safest way for our seller to be able to do that. Okay, so again, this offer is accepted subject to the release from the existing their purchase agreement, from an
Because
existing
legally, you
purchase
cannot
agreement.
go into a purchase agreement while you're already under contract elsewhere. So it would have to be contingent, from what I
Well,
understand.
I love what you said, and you're right. I don't know if I would go, it's not legal, because what
Well,
you just did, if you accepted 2 purchase agreements and you can't sell it to both of them.
I don't think you're
So
going to go
now
to
you're in
jail,
trouble.
but yeah.
Yeah. It's just, again, you've already got it sold to one person. How do you turn around and sell it to somebody else?
Right.
Because that's where you're going to have issues. So it is definitely a legal issue because you got 2 parties that want to buy a house. The key on this one, can I, without putting that verbiage on it? Yes. But I want written proof that the buyer is not moving forward. They are not going to close. And that could be an email. Again, preferably the mutual release, because that's releasing each party from this transaction and addressing how we're handling the earnest money. Typically, it's because of the scenario we just talked about, and it's a dispute over the earnest money is the reason that we don't get a mutual release signed. So now we've gone back and forth, and we have lots of communication that they're not going to close, and we're simply disputing an earnest money deposit. because the buyer has stated they're not going to close, we can turn around and sell this property. But again, what's the best way to make sure that we've got the seller covered? By accepting it contingent upon the release of an existing purchase agreement. Any other thoughts to that one? Or what questions do we have? All right. This is the quick one, hopefully. What do you do when there's a low appraisal? And the question is there an appraisal guarantee? If there's an appraisal guarantee, well, hopefully you wrote an offer where the buyer can actually live up to the terms of that appraisal guarantee. So then there's the appraisal contingency. Curiosity, does our purchase agreement make it contingent upon the property appraising? Who says yes?
Say yes.
Show of hands.
Yes.
Elizabeth, yes. Larry says yes. Reagan's nodding. Yep. Mr. iPhone, Tom. Yes. I specifically made sure that we put that on there. So it does state that it must appraise. Okay. Now that's simple terms, but it must appraise. That keeps everything simple for how we can address stuff, right? But what if I have a purchase agreement where it's not contingent upon appraisal? Then what has to happen? Well, one thing is we always say is when you have an issue, bring me the purchase agreement, bring me the paperwork. We need to know specifically word for word what it says. Because the next way that somebody might be covered without an appraisal contingency is the contingency on financing. Now, if you were with me a couple of weeks back, I actually showed you a purchase agreement where even though it was contingent on financing, it was like an open book because it didn't state anything in the blank. So we didn't know if it was a conventional FHA, VA, if it was rural development or what it was. It just said it was contingent upon getting financing because the blanks were not filled in. So my warning to you is make sure that you have all the blanks filled in. It's conventional financing. It's 80% loan to value with 20% down. Now it's contingent upon getting those terms of financing. Now we've addressed one more part to that. So as a buyer's agent, we have the contingency. We're going to say because most of them are going to be contingent upon financing or an appraisal contingency. So now what? Well, as a buyer's agent, you're simply going to call and I would go, hey, Tom, Darwin, listen, great news is the appraisal is back. Bad news is we're $15,000 short. Just zip it. Simply advise the agent, the listing agent, that we're short and the amount. What will, I'm going to say most agents, not even many, most. What will most agents do? What will most agents be expecting or thinking that has to happen?
They'll need to go back and have conversation with their seller. It would be.
And tell their seller that, gee, the appraisal didn't have to come back. We're going to have to reduce the price. You'd be shocked how many agents will do that. So here's what I want you to know. As a seller's agent, don't give it away. So what? Came in low. What are you saying? Well, they're going to have to reduce. No, they don't have to reduce the price. You could still buy it. You just got to make up the difference. Well, they can't do that. Well, what can they do? Well, get a hold of your mortgage partner and find out what they can do. Then let's talk. Who do I represent? So just know with a low appraisal, what does all of the paperwork say? How is the buyer covered? And as the seller's agent, I need to know what the paperwork says because it's probably not going to be our purchase agreement. I know I'm not going to give it away. So when I get that phone call, I go, oh, wow, that kind of sucks. So are they going to look for a rebuttal on that? Are they going to do a new appraisal? What are they going to do? And then watch them start peeing them pants because they never thought of that. They expected us to just reduce the price. No, I'm sorry. That's not the first option. First option is you pay what you agreed to pay. Yeah, but it's contingent upon the financing. Great. Can they come up with a difference? Now, I'm copping a little bit of an attitude with it, right? But I want to do that to demonstrate. It doesn't mean that we have to give it away. That becomes the bottom line. All right. And I thought I actually put the other scenario on there. How are we doing? Let me give you one more that I didn't put here. Here's a scenario for you. I've got a buyer. Is Holly on with us? Holly's not on. I've got a buyer, mom, taking mom out, showing her homes, and daughter and her husband came along with. No problem, right? Good relationship, no, whole deal. And mom doesn't like a house, but daughter and her husband kind of did. And then daughter says, yeah, Jim Bob and I, we were talking about whether or not we should buy another home. Understanding the terms of the settlement and knowing now, because you've been with me throughout these weeks and I gave you an update, that the legislature is actually in the state of Michigan going to create a law that basically will coordinate with the terms of the settlement. Holly's question was, should I have had them sign an agreement, a buyer representation agreement? Well, it really makes a lot of sense in some ways, but in the other, it was, when you ask the question, well, who were you showing the home to? Who was the buyer? That was mom. Daughter was not a buyer. Daughter was not seeing it as a buyer. But if mom says, I don't like that one, I want to go buy that one, and daughter says, then we're going to buy that one, what will we have to do? Have her sign an agreement at that point. Daughter and son-in-law would have to sign an agreement. So we just got to keep it simple because, and we were just talking about this earlier on the business development series, the settlement states prior to touring a home with the buyer, we have to make them sign an agreement. Let me put it in other words, because this is the way that we should be seeing it. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, before I can show you the home, the government believes that they're doing you a favor by requiring you sign an agreement with me. Isn't that what they did? So guys, use it to your favor. Be a great salesperson, one who cares about them and is doing things the right way and above board, but use it to your advantage. So that's what it says. Prior to touring a home as a buyer, the buyer must sign an agreement with that agent. So that was it. Quick and easy, but we just have to know the basic terms, and that'll tell us where we go. Any questions, guys? Everybody's good. All right. Next week, live from Ann Arbor. I'm
Yay.
sitting down with, Elizabeth, and you can kind of tell them a little bit about these two. I'm going to be heading out to Ann Arbor. If you're close and you want to come in and sit in with us, I'm sitting down with Howard. Wait a minute, I better say that right. I don't want Glenda to get mad at me. Just kidding, I love her. Glenda Gerbstadt and Howard Watts. They operate as a team and yet do pretty much their own business individually. What was their volume last year combined? Do you remember, Elizabeth?
I think it was over 25 million, if I stand correct there. As the rings
Yeah.
about right. Yeah,
And
they're a
they
fantastic couple.
just great people.
Mhm.
They know what they're doing. Just all the way around. I call them the queen and king of condos.
Yeah, they do a
That's
lot of kind of they really are I am very honored to get to work with them on a day-to-day basis to watch their practice because they are very stay in their own lane. They are very disciplined at what they do. They have one sales assistant, but between the three of them, they're doing really high volume consistently and they're pretty amazing. So, yeah.
yeah. So join me because we're going to talk about, as I put it, I don't have much of an agenda. I want to know where they came from, how they got where they are. We're going to talk condos. And, one question I told him, I said, I just curious, there was a change in regards to financing with condos and how have they seen it impact the sale of condominiums, if at all. So that's what we're going to be looking forward to with them. I will let you know that we're going to be doing earnest money deposits. Let's see, the 14th is next week. 21st, by the way, make a note. You guys will know this ahead of everybody else, but we're not going to have a hot topic on the 21st because I'm on vacation. I'm going to get out
Yay.
of town. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to be out of town. So, nothing on the 21st. But coming back, at this point, I've got earnest money deposits. I looked and it seems like it's been a couple of years since we've done an earnest money deposit where it's just that we're talking about. And for many of you, what happens if there's a dispute? What if I can't get a mutual release? What does the law require? What if there is a dispute? What if we don't know if there's a dispute? What if we can't get a mutual release? So we're going to talk all things about earnest money deposit, and we're actually Peter's going to do a test on one regarding AI in your business. So look for that to be an upcoming hot topic also. So for that, guys, that's what I got for today. Thanks for joining me. Pass the word. I'll get this posted as soon as possible so everybody can see all three of these. And yeah, Peter, I think I'm going to break up the personal property addendum. So that's a separate one. Well, it'll all be there. The whole thing will be for hot topic, but I'll separate that out so that that's there. Guys, go out and talk to people. See you next week in Ann Arbor. Have a great one.